So in our last tutorial, we finished off making the sniper sight. We just take that off. We've got a nice hollowed out sight there. We've got some lenses at either end that we can use to put glass in, so that's great. Now all that really remains for me to do is, if I just come back to my four views here, there we go, that's just sorted that problem out there quickly. Now what I want to do is I want to make the little notchy thing at the top here that's used to sort of adjust the scope. So we're going to go ahead and do that quickly now. I'll make that a maximum view, and what I think I'll probably do is I'll probably start off by making an outline shape here, and then we'll lay that round, and then we'll look at how we take out these sections, so, you know, for sort of the fingers to fit into once we've got our shape, our basic shape to start with. So I'm going to start with using the line tool, and I'll make sure that everything's set to corner. I tend to do this because I find it's a lot easier to do that. You can then worry about what the curves are going to be like after you've finished making the shape. So I'll make it start off by sort of intersecting, and I realise that the background isn't quite matching up to the shapes that we've got, but that's okay. Doesn't really matter as far as I'm concerned at the moment. And let's just adjust some of these positions here. There we go. Right, so that's kind of given us a rough outline that we're looking for. The next thing we need to do is to decide where we want our nice bevel edges to be. And I think I'm probably going to pull that down a little bit. If I press X to get rid of those horrible gizmos, I can now start to edit here. And I'm using, you see where I sort of skipped between these sort of the constraint to angle to particular direction here, and I'm just using the F5, 6, 7 make key to do that with, really. So kind of takes a little bit of the hassle out of having to work with the gizmos for the movement. So let's just see. We want to fillet some of these vertices now. I think that was good. That works for me. Now you notice there that two of the vertices locked on top of each other. Obviously there's now two vertices on top of each other. What we haven't done is we haven't sort of wiped out one of them. So we have to be careful about that and just make sure that we weld that one particular vertex so it doesn't give us any problems later on. And we can just make some nice small fillets around here. And then we'll make some larger ones on these sides. There we go. It's nice and simple, isn't it? And again, we'll just go in and we'll just make sure that one or two of these are welded correctly. So what we've actually got now is this is actually beginning to look like quite a nice profile. And I think I'll just finish that off with turning these into Bezier corners, and we'll probably just do something like that. Do you want to do something like that? Do you want to do... Ooh, I don't know, it's interesting. Difficult profile. I think possibly we'll keep those as straight then, since I don't like the look of them any other way. So that's good. We've now got a nice little profile here, and all I'm going to do is I'm just going to lathe that round. So we'll come to our modifier over here, and we'll pick lathe, and in the best sense of humour it's got it completely wrong. So let's just drag this out. And there we go, we can see we've got our lathe now. Now one thing that I think we can all agree on is that's probably a little bit too big, so I'll bring that in a little bit tighter. That's better. And the problem that we now have is getting these edges to intersect. So what I'll do now I think we need to work on the segments. We need to up the number of segments, seeing as we're not going to bother smoothing this. I mean, we could. I mean, there's kind of two ways that we could go about this. I think at this point, I could either say that my segments are quite low, so maybe 10, and then on my line, I turn my interpolation right down. So, for example, we have an interpolation of, say, 1. And then I do something like add a turbo smooth over the top, which I don't particularly like, but will just give us an idea of what we're going to get. So we can either work that way around, which doesn't really give us what I'm looking for. Yeah, this is a problem. You see, what we've got in this object is something that's quite heavy on polygons, and it doesn't really need to be, but the polygons are nice and evenly distributed. So I suppose let's try this a different way. Let's try and edit poly. No, that's not going to work. That's not what I want. Let's go back and let's do a mesh smooth. This is going to give me what I want. Yes, it will do. Iterations 2, 3. Right. Let's go around and start picking our edges. We do these as... Oh, this is brilliant. You don't get half the tools in here, do you? Let's get rid of that. Right. Convert it to an editable polygon. Right, now I can start to work with this properly. Right. Use NURMS. Make that nice and smooth. There we go. Go to our edges. And we'll pick the edge right in the corner there. We'll loop that. And then we'll crease that off to make that a little bit tighter. And we'll do the same on each one of these edges. There we go. You see that looks a lot better, doesn't it? We've got a lot more control using this tool. A lot more control. And let's just come in here and here as well, and we'll loop our selection for both of those edges, and then we'll use the crease tool and then with my lathe, if I turn that up to 24, we have to sort of stop and look at this and think, well, which one do we like the look of best? And I think I'm going to say that I like this one better. There's issues with this. Even with the lathe, if I then come back and put a smooth on that, and we auto smooth it, yeah, it still doesn't look as pretty as with using smoothing, does it? I mean, let's be honest about this. So right, you're gone, my friend, and we'll move this back. That's brilliant. I love it. Okay, so it's not quite the same size as the one that we had there, but it does fit in with our model a little bit better. And what we do have the option to do is to pick a border edge like this one. And because I'm working with an editable polygon, I've got all of the tools that I would normally have with my editable polygon available to me. So there you go. All I've done is I've just dragged these edges down and I've got them to intersect with the sniper scope. So that's good. Apart from, I now need to know what damage hide selection has been done inside here. So yes, what we've got is, you can see there's just a slight edge coming in. Now this probably won't be an issue for, I would say, 99.5% of the work you're going to do with this model. Problem is, I don't really want that there. What happens if you decide you want to look down the scope at some point and you've beautifully made this up, and just as you pan your camera through just to look down the scope to put something else in, this hairy great polygon gets in the way. So what we'll do, we'll just make sure that F3, these two edges, we'll just pull them up slightly. There we go, and you can see because we're on a smooth surface, we're actually getting a nice little response coming off that. There we go, that's fine, that's absolutely fine. It doesn't matter that you've got an intersection between these two and then it's not properly made up or all the rest of it. It's just, that's going to look nice. That's going to look really nice. Okay, so the next thing we really want to do is to start putting the little divots in. And the choice that we've got, based on what I can see from that image, is we either go in and we divot in, or we come out again. And I'm kind of inclined to come out, because I think that's going to be a lot easier to produce. So maybe what I'm going to do then is we're going to grab all these vertices and just come up slightly. And then on every single one of these, or every other one rather, there we go, that's nice and neat. I'm beginning to like the way this is going to go already. All I'm going to do is I'm going to extrude once, very slightly, and then a second time. And possibly, because I maybe should have made that a bevel, we'll use the scale tool. But if we make it scale local, this is great. Each one of those faces will scale to its local position, which is absolutely brilliant. That's exactly what we want. So I can now come in, select an edge. Oh, this is going to be painful, isn't it? It won't let me select the whole edge loop. I don't know if you're using something like Modo or something like that, maybe it will do. And all I'm going to do now is just go around and I'm going to select each one of the edges. Go to make up the base of these nodules. You don't actually have to do this. I'm just doing this because I personally prefer the look of this. You know, the result that you get when you do that, I prefer. So I'm going to carry on doing it, and we'll just go through. God. If anybody can find an easier way of doing this than having to go around and select each one of those, please tell me, because that kind of thing's been the bane of my life for a while. Right, so let's just have a look at the iteration, see if we do it to 3. Yeah, look at that, that looks quite cool. That works. Let's try that with a with just a standard material on. And there we go. That's the oh, the other thing to remember just before I go. You can see here I'm using the NURM subdivision within the viewport, and I've got it set to iterations 3. You don't have to do that. If you don't have quite such a whizzy computer as I've got, what you can do is you can turn this down. You can even turn it off. But so long as your render iterations are up where they should be, then when you press render, you can see this is quite boxy. If I just press render quickly, you can see there that's slightly less boxy. I press 3. That's really the one that we want. So there you go. That's what I'm seeing in my viewport. That's what I'm going to work with. Or maybe make that 1 just so it looks a little bit more convincing. And then that's when I get at render time. So that's worth remembering. It's worth remembering that you can do that. Okay, so that's the end of this one. And when we come back and we do the next one, we'll be working at on the rail mount for the sniper scope.